Hey everyone, it is Alex here, and I just wanted to give you guys a nice, quick introduction to what I'm planning to start this league in 323. I'm looking at a Cobra Lash Pathfinder. We're going to be doing poison-based rather than crit-based to non-crit poison. Trying to keep this very cheap and unoptimized, and by unoptimized, I mean unmin-maxed. I do think it's relatively optimized. There's definitely some key mechanics that we're going to want to continue to scale into the late game, but I tried to keep this nice and simple and effective fairly early on. You'll see I have it set to level 95, but I only actually use level 89 worth of points. So this is level 89 tree. There is going to be some additional stuff, and in order to find out what I do to continue to develop this build, you're going to need to check out my future videos as I play the build. I like to develop things as I go, so this is just a rough framework for me to operate off of. Like I said, we're doing Poison Cobra Lash. Here I'm just looking at a nice 5 link with some basic gems. We're going to be running Ancestral Protector 4 link as a little bit of extra single target. Later on, as the build progresses, Cobra Lash may begin to very hard outscale Ancestral Protector, and this may be dropped. But for the early game, having an extra little damage button should be fairly nice. Right now I'm running Skitterbots and Precision. This may change. We're running Aspect of the Spider as well. Blood Rage, Ice Golem, some Poacher's Mark on hit. We've got a Arcanist Brand, Tornado, Despair, Calling Strike setup here. So we just Arcanist Brand, it'll cast Tornado and Despair. Tornado will have Cull, and this way we can get our chains. That's the reason that I'm counting 2 times Cobra Lash here in the end. This may be a bit of an assumption to make that it'll always be up. It may not always be up. So this number may be a bit higher than actual. We have Withering Step just for some better Wither application. I know it's anomalous, but this is the new base quality. And then Plague Bearer, of course. There is actually, I think, 2 more link slots available. As far as the gear, I tried to keep things relatively cheap. Of course, we're running Wasp Nest, always. Mist Wall is what I placed here for now. This could very easily simply be a rare, but I'm just running Mist Wall because it provides some very nice attack mitigation with that maximum block, and it does scale very nicely with Evade. And of course, he gives you some nice move speed and evasion rating. So I think it's a pretty decent early game shield, but you could certainly go for a rare or something else. Running the Finimus helmet here. This is going to be one of the more expensive items for this early version of the build. It's just a bunch of extra damage and the Aspect of the Spider power charge generation. So this is going to be something that I get probably after some of these other options, but it is a nice damage boost and gives us our power charges. Dendrobait will be probably the last unique in this list I get, because we can only use this once we have these stat requirements, and those will require rares to max out. But this is obviously a very nice little bonus in damage and that kind of thing. Embalmer is just very nice. This is where I would put my Ancestral War Chief. I'm actually not sure if I put it in the gloves. I did not, so we can go ahead and do that, and we should get a little chunk of extra damage. And of course, it gives the increased poison duration. That's the main reason you run it, along with the flat chaos damage. I'm running Dawn Strider, probably one of the other more expensive uniques, but this should be probably less than 10C in a week, maybe, into the league. Probably very not much even in the first few days. It is, of course, a boss unique, but people do get to bosses very quickly. And this is a relatively... this is my cat saying hi. This is a relatively cheap unique, usually, and it's also not incredibly necessary. It's just some extra damage, so if it's not available, just run some rares. Amulet's very basic. I'm trying to fill out those stats, get some resists, and Aspect of the Spider can be on any of these rares. Of course, again, life, stats, resists, and some accuracy rating, of course. And then we're running a little bit of flask sustain here. This could be charges gained, reduced used, or extra duration. For our flasks, I'm getting my bleeding CB immunity on this flask because this is the easiest to maintain sustain on. I'm running Jade, Quicksilver, Amethyst, and Silver, and with the suffixes, just mix them around, attack speed, evasion rating, some extra resists to make capping them a lot easier, because for Pathfinder, we can actually sustain these flasks once we get later in, and then some move speed, of course. The jewel is just very basic because I had a 1-point jewel socket. I slapped this in there. This should be, 5C maybe. Nothing too crazy, I wouldn't think. You could also try and cap your stats and resists using this jewel if that's something you want to do. And those should be fairly cheap as well. As far as the tree, of course, for Pathfinder, we take our 2 poison nodes, the Flask Sustain and the Magic Flask Effect. We're coming out of here, we're taking our life and evasion rating, and then we could probably replace this evasion rating with this accuracy and attack speed if you need the accuracy rating for capped accuracy. You could totally take this. We go over for spell suppression, life. We grab our poison claw node, generic poison node. This is for flask sustain, spell suppress, life, flask sustain, poison, spell suppress, poison, poison. Actually, this is flask sustain, poison. Got our claw wheel. We've got just some more damage and stuff over here. I grab Ghost Dance because we do actually have some energy shield, mostly coming from Finimus's Toxins and Gingerbait. These two actually have pretty decent energy shield numbers, so we're looking at some decent energy shield. And so that can give you Ghost Dance, of course. And it's nice because you get some nice energy shield recovery, which we otherwise did not have any. I then cap out my suppression here, grab some more poison damage, and we get our second curse up here with Whispers of Doom. That second curse, the 2 curses being Poacher's Mark and Despair. With the summon skitterbots giving us chill, we could look at, once we get a 3rd curse, if we go for the 3rd curse, we could run temporal chains, and the stacking effect of those 2 things could be some nice defensiveness during boss fights and that kind of thing. Now, you may notice some things I didn't take, namely some of these 2-point jewels, this extra projectile here. I haven't taken Wind Dancer. I haven't taken this. I haven't taken this for the energy shield. This Soul Thief may very well be worth running. I haven't taken the extra frenzy charges. So most of this is just trying to keep point economy, but the other reason is this simply isn't good unless you have Fan of Blades on a cluster jewel, because you're going to end up with an even amount of projectiles, and an even amount of projectiles is very obnoxious to play with. So I would not recommend taking this on its own. You need to have another +1. That other +1 would come from Fan of Blades, and so then if you take this pair, then that's worth doing. But I do not recommend multi-shot in isolation. Yeah, so that pretty much covers what I'm looking at. As far as what I'm planning to continue to develop as I play the build, the first is going to be ailment immunity. I could definitely look at going down the crystal skin route, maybe switch to rare boots or rare shield for some ailment avoidance. I'm going to be looking at taking the blind combo, taking this blind wheel here, possibly trying to fit flesh and stone into the build, because if you look at flesh and stone, in Sand Stance, nearby enemies are blinded. This is obscenely powerful in an evasion build. So if you run this Flesh and Stone with that blind wheel on the tree, we'll be looking at significantly more defensiveness. So if I look, Sand Stance, it should crank my evade chance. You see that? I'm going to go ahead and check that the enemy is blinded just so it 100% does it. And then we take this blind wheel here, along with this blind effect, and we went from 60-something evade chance to 82. So very easily cap your evade chance with this, along with Grace or some other scaling, and this will allow you to take Wind Dancer, as well as you could probably switch from Mistwall to Replica Mistwall. So that's going to be kind of probably some of the early upgrades I do for the build, but this is not worth doing until you have the room for Flesh and Stone, and etc., etc. So we're going to uncheck blind on the enemy. So this is what I'm looking at. If you have any recommendations for how I can continue to scale this build, let me know. I have some ideas, but I want to play the build and find out, where its pitfalls are, where it could be stronger, and that kind of thing. I'm not going to be able to predict everything through POB here. I've not played this build before. So, yep, that's everything for me. Just keeping things simple and cheap. I hope you enjoyed, and look forward to some updates to this build as I play the League launch tomorrow. Thank you, and have a good one.